The King of the Golden Mountain. Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by rolling hills and sparkling streams, there lived a kind merchant. He was honest and hardworking, but one year all his luck seemed to run out. His ships were lost at sea, his crops failed, and he was left with nothing but an empty house and a heavy heart. One evening, as the merchant walked through the forest, pondering how he could save his family from poverty, he encountered a strange, mysterious dwarf with a long silver beard and a twinkle in his eye. "Good evening, sir," the dwarf greeted. "Why do you look so glum?" The merchant sighed and explained his troubles. The dwarf stroked his beard and smiled. "I can help you," he said. "I'll make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. But in return, you must give me the first thing that greets you when you return home." The merchant hesitated. He loved his family dearly, but the offer seemed too good to refuse. Surely the first thing to greet him would be the dog, he thought. So he agreed. "Very well," the dwarf said, and with a wave of his hand, bags of gold appeared at the merchant's feet. Overjoyed, the merchant hurried home. But to his horror, the first to greet him was not the dog but his young son, who ran out laughing, "Father, you're home!" The merchant's heart sank, but he kept his secret. The gold solved all his troubles, and life returned to normal, at least for a while. Years passed, and the boy grew into a clever and adventurous young man. One day, as they worked together in the fields, the merchant could no longer bear the guilt and told his son the truth. "I made a pact with a dwarf to save us from ruin," he confessed, "but it means one day you must leave us and go to his mountain." The son, brave and kind-hearted, comforted his father. "Don't worry, father, I'll go when the time comes. Perhaps I'll even find my destiny there." And so, when the dwarf finally came to claim him, the boy hugged his parents and set off on his adventure. The dwarf led the boy through forests and valleys until they reached a sparkling golden mountain. At its base was a magnificent castle that glittered in the sunlight. "This will be your home now," the dwarf said. "But remember, the mountain's magic is powerful. Treat it with respect." The boy explored the castle and found it filled with treasures. Golden thrones, jewel-encrusted goblets, and books that seemed to hum with enchantment. Yet, despite the splendor, he felt lonely. One day, while wandering the gardens, he discovered a beautiful young woman sitting by a fountain. She had hair like spun gold and eyes as blue as the sky. "Who are you?" he asked, startled. "I am a princess," she replied. "The dwarf brought me here long ago, but I long to return to my own kingdom." The boy and the princess quickly became friends. Together they explored the mountain, read magical books, and dreamed of escaping to a life of freedom. One evening, the boy found an ancient book in the castle library. It told of a secret passage beneath the mountain that led to the outside world. Excited, he showed the princess. "We could leave," he said. The princess hesitated. "The dwarf is powerful. If he catches us, he'll never forgive us." But the boy was determined. They packed food, gathered a few treasures, and set off under the cover of night. The passage was dark and winding, but at last they emerged into a lush green meadow. They laughed and danced, thrilled to be free. But their joy was short-lived. The dwarf appeared in a puff of smoke, his eyes blazing with fury. "You dare betray me?" he roared. Before they could reply, he cast a spell that sent the boy far, far away. When the boy awoke, he found himself in a strange kingdom, with no sign of the princess. Determined to find her, he began working in the king's gardens to earn his keep. The king soon noticed the boy's intelligence and kindness and invited him to dine at the palace. Over time, the boy won the king's trust and became an advisor. One day, the boy overheard travelers speaking of a princess trapped in a distant castle guarded by a fierce dragon. He was certain it was his friend. With the king's blessing, the boy set off to rescue her. He journeyed through forests, crossed rivers, and climbed mountains until he reached the dragon's lair. The dragon was enormous, with scales like armor and eyes that glowed like fire. But the boy was clever. He used the magic he had learned on the Golden Mountain to create an illusion that tricked the dragon into leaving its post. He hurried into the castle and found the princess locked in a tower. "You came for me," she cried, tears of joy streaming down her face. Together they escaped and returned to the king's palace, where they were hailed as heroes. The king, grateful for the boy's bravery, offered him the hand of the princess in marriage. But the boy hesitated. "There's something I must do first," he said. He returned to the Golden Mountain and confronted the dwarf. "I have repaid your kindness with bravery and honor," he said. "Let us part in peace." The dwarf, seeing the boy's courage, smiled. "You have grown wise, young man. The mountain is yours now. Use its magic well." The boy returned to the princess, and they were married in a grand celebration. Together they ruled the Golden Mountain with kindness and wisdom, ensuring that its magic brought joy to all. And so they lived happily ever after. The end.